to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces. Thank you. So I'd like to call this public hearing to order. This is regarding a new Chapter 15, Article 2, food vending trucks, to the ordinance authorized in Chapter 98, Connecticut General Statutes at the Milford Town Hall, July 8, 2019, 6:45 p.m. And this was in the Danbury, was it Danbury News Times? Danbury News Times, run date 7/1/2019, which I can give you a copy of that if you want. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to address the public hearing? If there is anybody, come up to the podium, state your name and address.
Oh, it works. Jeff Kilberg, 12 Spruce Lane, New Milford, Connecticut. So I've known Dave Littlefield and Diane Littlefield for probably close to 20 years, and I can clearly say that they are not only just great neighbors, but they do whatever they say they're going to do. Opening up this brewery has really brought a lot of people into town. It's been great. It is a brewery after all, but having a drink and nothing to eat is really doesn't quite go together. I mean, we go to the brewery and we have a beer, and having something to eat is great. And because there's no kitchen at this brewery, having food trucks there on occasion would be a great enhancement to the business. So I'm in total favor of this, and I don't see how it could be detrimental at all to the community except enhance a business that's already here in town. And I'm a big proponent for all businesses here in our town. Would like to see it continue to do well.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to address the public hearing? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Susie Daigle. I'm Mr. Littlefield's next door neighbor. That's what we ever since was been here for 37 years. And I just have a few questions. Where the food truck going to park? Do we have a map and an area of which it's supposed to be at? Can anybody answer that question?
We don't usually respond during comment, Sue.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why
See,
we're not annoying you.
You can see how
purposely.
how good I know it. And I'm not opposed to the food trucks at all. As a matter of fact, they bring a lot of quality food and gourmet food and everything to the area. But a lot of local businesses and towns are doing food truck nights, like on a Friday night. There's like 20, 30 food trucks. They do face paintings. They have a band. They have, and all that kind of stuff. And I just think that the establishment knew they couldn't have food, and there's not any breweries that are allowed to have food. And I just think it's not for me because I don't deliver, but my tenant does. And I think that there's so many DoorDash and Urban Eats and Grubhub, and I called on Yelp, and they gave me the list of the 15 most popular restaurants that take out, and the number one was Cool Hand Duke's because they just opened up, and this is on July 1st. Lucia's, the Cobblestone, the Iron Rare, Zarconi's, La Piccolina, the 122, the Brick House, the Cook House, GW Tavern, Italia Mia, the Upper Crust, and the sushi place in Laurie's Plaza, Yokohama. So, you know, it's no reflection on me. I just feel that if you wanted to serve food, and there's a brew pub in Bethel that serves food, but they have a kitchen. So I think it's a little unfair that people will spend $250,000 to install a kitchen and a grease trap and all that other stuff. And with the localized Food trucks, I think it hurts the other businesses in town. Not me particularly because I don't deliver. So, like the elephant's trunk, and I just feel that the town could benefit by having these food truck get-togethers with 20 or 30 trucks because it will bring income and whoever, and I don't understand all the ins and outs. I don't know if where you can allow to have a food truck. I think it's not on property, and it's like 250 feet from a place, a business. So there's no map available that where these possible food trucks will be. I guess can't find that out at another time.
At another time. This is just the beginning of the
Oh,
ordinance.
okay. Yeah, so I love the food truck idea, and I think the town would benefit by having these little special events, because a lot of times every Friday they have these, and the town can make money off the vendors putting in their money. But I'm sure we don't care that if you have a food truck. But I just want to make it known that it's not unfair for the people who spent thousands of dollars installing kitchens.
Thank
They
you.
could have done that in the beginning.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
All right, Dave Littlefield, 8 Spruce Lane. So I just wanted to clarify a couple things for the ordinance so that everybody understands what it is. So there was some confusion before about what it is, but it is only for on private property. They're not going to be running up and down the side of Route 7 and 202. As far as most of the restaurants mentioned there, most of them actually don't deliver.
They do.
The Brick House, Cookhouse, they don't.
Yes, they do.
It's Dave's turn.
Yeah. So anyway, they gave me letters of support, which I supplied to the mayor, supporting the food trucks. And I did put in a grease trap in my place at a great expense, even though I didn't need it, but it was required. For me, in particular, just so you know, the food trucks would be in the back in my beer garden off the road. Nobody would be it. But part of the ordinance is that they have to be out of the way, so they're not affecting traffic, they're not impacting anything like that. So anyway, I just want to make sure everybody was clear on what it was and what it wasn't. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you have anyone else that would like to address public hearing? Anybody in the public have any additional questions? Any council members have any questions? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is our regular town council meeting, which is at 7 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We all could rise for the pledge, please. Lisa, could you lead us in the pledge?
Of course, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces. Thank you. Next is public comment. Lisa.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Where am I? Jeff Sikowitz. Did I say that close? Awesome.
Perfect.
Right on.
Good evening. For the record, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeff Sinkowitz. I'm a local attorney, and I'm here on behalf of Candlewood Solar LLC. Tonight, the next three people on that list, I'm not sure they'll speak or not, but they are also in one way or another involved. Rob Jackson is the Director of Operations of Candlewood Solar. Daniela Hearn is one of the engineers involved with the Candlewood Solar, and Peter DiDadio is basically the property owner, or was the property owner. In 2017, the town negotiated with Candlewood Solar and with New Milford Clean Energy LLC what's sometimes called a pilot agreement. It's a payment in lieu of taxes agreement. I have copies of it for those of you who've never seen it. Basically, the pilot agreement was negotiated before Candlewood Solar went to any state agency for any of its approvals. And the pilot agreement contemplated that Candlewood Solar would meet certain requirements that are set forth on what I'll refer to as Schedule B of the pilot agreement. I was hired to facilitate or to assist Candlewood Solar in meeting the requirements of Schedule B. The big issue, one big issue in the pilot agreement is that the Candlewood Solar, for its proposed solar generating facility, if it's built, proposed to pay the town $2,747,979 over 20 years in lieu of taxes. And I wasn't involved in those negotiations, but I believe that the town had consultants that advised it on that issue and concluded that that was a fair and just payment of taxes for this type of facility. One of the other big issues, I think, from the town's point of view, is the property is zoned for high-density development. I think it's called a master development or master plan development zone, and that the prior proposal was, I think, 502 residential units just before the recession that had some wetlands issues and was never approved. But that's what the zone is for high-density development of that property. And in the agreement, the town negotiated, said, okay, well, you will agree to return it to R80 zone. So when the project is decommissioned 20 years or so from now, the property is not going back to high-density residential development. It's going to be R80. The other item in the agreement on the Schedule B is that there's going to be bonds posted, $125,000 for any damage caused to the town's roads. I believe $100,000 for landscaping, if there's any adverse landscaping issues. I believe another $100,000 for, or maybe it's $125,000 for erosion, sedimentation and erosion control, if there's some issues in that regard. I had submitted about a month and a half ago, maybe a month ago, proposed bonds and haven't had any response to that. In December of 2017, the Connecticut Siting Council approved the project, and an appeal was taken by Carl Dunham and a group called Rescue Candlewood Mountain. That is presently pending. The big issue, it seems, at the moment is whether the plaintiffs are aggrieved, and that's pending before the court. More recently, the Connecticut Siting Council approved something called the Development and Management Plan. And the town, through its consultant, Maloney McBroom, had a lot of objections to the stormwater management component of that plan. And one of the first things I had suggested that the
Jeffrey, 1
consultants,
minute, sorry to interrupt.
that the consultants do was to contact Malone McBroom and try to resolve those problems. They weren't resolved. There's been no discussion. They've responded to Malone's comments through written responses. And at the moment, however, the project is about to be resubmitted, and I'm here to basically offer again to the town that Canada Solar is willing and wants to have its consultants speak to Malone and McBroom, try to address their concerns if they still have any. There's been a lot of field work done since this was written, and try to resolve the technical issues in advance rather than after the fact. Candlewood Solar wants to be well, they don't want to cost the town a lot of money if they can resolve problems right up front. And I think they can. It's quite often done
Jeffrey,
in a land use
time.
setting.
I apologize, it's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob Jackson?
Hi, Rob Jackson, Director of Development for Amoresco. Jeff really summed up what we really want to do moving forward. At this point, to kind of summarize, we're at the point of submitting a revised stormwater plan to the DEEP, and as a requirement of our pilot agreement, the town needs to review that as well. We've, as Jeff had mentioned, addressed all the comments from Malone and McBroom, the town's engineer, and we propose submitting the next draft of the stormwater plan to the town and its consultant for review. We'd like to sit down with engineers on the project to resolve any remaining issues. In tandem, we are meeting with the DEEP stormwater team to iron out any other comments there as well. So there are two processes that we're working on. Just as a note, Kenwood Solar is going to be, assuming the project moves forward, a 20-year taxpayer and wants to be a good neighbor. We've gone through several iterations of review and addressed technical comments, and certainly made every effort to try to address the town's comments and that sort of thing. So we want to elevate that even more moving forward and work hand in hand with the town as we talk about this next phase of the project, and that is to resolve the stormwater issues to make sure that the community is safe and health and human and environment is well maintained with the project development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Ahern? Okay. Peter Dado?
Hello, Mayor Bass and Town Council. I appreciate us coming out this morning, taking a few minutes of your time.
State your name.
Oh, Peter Diadio. I'm in 156 New Britain Avenue, Rocky Hill. I'm a landowner. And we've been a landowner in New Milford for 20 years, a taxpayer for a long time. 5 years ago, 2015, we came to this council. Looked a little different. A lot of the members were still here. And introduced the idea of clean power up on Kenwood Mountain. After a lot of work, the pilot agreement came, and now this great tenant has moved a long way, getting approval from the Siting Council in 2017. It's about to finish their DEP, stormwater management plan. And we believe that there are a lot of information that's trickling down. It might not be accurate. We want to be here to provide that information, spend the time to work with the town to be sure that we can review these things that are concerning to the town, to make sure our plan is what the town appreciates and what the town would accept from their comments. So if the it's okay, that's why we're here, and we appreciate the 5 minutes, and are open for answering questions, and are open for communication between your consultants and ours, because we just can't seem to get that. If we get that, it could be a lot smoother, so that we could do the kind of things that the town may request, if we know what they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Zanetta?
That was close. I'm Eric Zamiti. That's all right. I get it a lot. I've been a resident of New Milford for 20 years, and I'm just speaking on behalf of the proposition for food trucks in New Milford. I understand, if it's possible, I understand there's probably a 45-day waiting period after this public hearing that I unfortunately missed prior to this meeting. And I would just urge you, if that could be waived, to do so. I'm a small business owner, or part of small business ownership in Ridgefield, and I know that any kind of delay in things that can help your business can cause problems and be unfortunate. I know Dave and Diane now through school and at the brewery, and enjoy hanging out with them in their establishment. I think the community should engage and jump on ideas that allow for people to come into the community and spend their money with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, that's the end of the public speaking.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to mayor's remarks.
I'd like to make a motion to add
Oh, okay.
a couple of items. I'd like to move to add item 5C under appointments, to move in some other appointments. Do I have a second?
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And also, I'd like to make a motion to move item 7 on the agenda, the Riverfront Committee, up to the 6th place, and move item number 6, the executive session, down 1.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Next, mayor's comments. First of all, I'd like to thank our mayoral helpers, or our interns, so to speak, who's here tonight. We have Isabella and Dylan. They're both here, kind of trying to get an understanding of how municipal government works. I'd like to thank them for being interns in the office and for all their hard work helping us here in town. So thank you, and I'm glad you guys are here for your first council meeting. Next, I'd like to thank the Connecticut Department of Tourism for naming New Milford on the Classic Towns Green list to visit on their Greens tour of Western Connecticut. So we thank the Connecticut Department of Tourism for that. We'd also like to thank Kiplinger Magazine for naming New Milford on the 21 Great Places Near Mountains to Retire. We were the only town in the state of Connecticut to get this award, and we'd like to thank Kiplinger's. And Kiplinger's basically said young retirees seeking peace and quiet without getting bored ought to consider settling in New Milford. About 82 miles north of the city of New York City and 150 miles south of Boston. New England Village is a short train ride away, soon, from big city amenities, but bursting with small town charm. I absolutely agree with that. It offers a quaint downtown area with shops, restaurants, and an expansive town green. Candlewood Lake and Housatonic River provide a great setting for a host of outdoor activities, including swimming, boating, kayaking, and rowing, and a chance to connect with nature. And being in Litchfield Hills region, you're sure to enjoy leaf peeping in the fall. So I'd like to thank Kiplinger's for picking New Milford, which I say, best town in the USA. Also like to thank the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They too think of our wonderful town, and they listed us as one of the best cities in Connecticut to live. We were listed number 23 on that list. I personally think we should be listed number 1, but it's great to see these accolades we're getting from national and state exposure, so I'd like to thank them. Also, congratulations to the women's soccer team for their great win, back-to-back world champions. it's great to see, and as my daughters say, they were very happy to see that. So, and I told them I would say that tonight, so I want to thank them. I'd also like to congratulate a couple of businesses here in town for their efforts. One is Vision Engineering, which is in New Milford, and they just have gotten their new stereoscopic digital microscope product that just came out, and we're excited for them and their business, and we're happy that they're in New Milford. Also, we'd like to congratulate Medenstill on their FDA approval for their sterile liquid technology. It's actually putting liquids into a container sterile-free, which is a game changer for the medical industry. So we'll be hearing more about that. Also, speaking with Medenstill, I'd like to say thank you to them, our Northwest Regional Workforce Investment Board, Naugatuck Valley Community College, and New Milford High School, as we're exploring an Advanced Manufacturing and Bioscience Institute of Excellence. So we'll be talking more about that and the opportunity for our young people in this town and area to learn advanced manufacturing, which gives an opportunity for this town and this region and New Milford to be on the cutting edge of that. So we're working on that. Also, we've been honoring our town employees, and I would be remiss, as I have a couple months, to not announce some of our employees of the month. So in April is Mr. Rosa, who works at DPW in the engineering department. Joey Bain in May, he's in our facilities. And in June, Diane Cunningham from our human resources department. So I'd like to thank them for all their hard efforts. And when we award Employee of the Month, these are for our members that go above and beyond what they're supposed to do. So we'd like to congratulate them and honor them for that achievement. This month, we're also accepting non-perishable food items in the mayor's office for the New Milford Food Bank. And during this time of year, this is when the food banks run perilously low. A lot of people are busy and doing different things. We're going to be creating a wall of food, which we'll be presenting at the Village Fair Days. You can drop off items, as some already have, at the mayor's office. If you prefer to make a monetary donation, you can make the check out to New Milford Social Services, and you can put that in the memo. Also, I'd like to thank Carmela's Cupboard. This was what we started last year, which was the need for children that are hungry, that we found out, as I said last year, we found out there was many children that their one meal, their good meal, was at the lunch at school. So Angie Chastain is again running this, and they've already served 1,000 meals already. So if you'd like to give to them, you can go to www.carmelascupboard.com. Carmela.
No R.
Thank you. Carmelas, thank you. Cupboard.com, and you can donate there. We'd hope if you have that opportunity to do so for children in need, that would be great. Also, some brief things. We're continuing on our roads program. Roads have been awarded. So you're going to start seeing some shovels in the ground in the next few weeks. 9 major roads. We're then doing an additional 5.5 miles of chip seal and continuation with crack seal as well, all in the efforts of bringing our road system up to where it should be. Continuing on our roofs, Sarah Noble roof is in work right now. We're working to go out to bid on the high school roof, and on Town Hall, we're just waiting for the Connecticut Historic Preservation Trust. The woman that was running that program had left, so we're waiting for the new person to come on, and then we're going to be working on getting this roof here at Town Hall done as well. As far as the oil tanks, as we know, are in East Street. They're in here at Town Hall. They're working on it at the police station, and soon enough, we're going to be doing it at Sarah Noble. Our municipal building company committee will be helping with that particular endeavor at Sarah Noble School. We're also continuing our beautification of the New Milford downtown, as you can see. So I'd like to thank the Garden Club, our volunteers, Riverfront Committee, downtown businesses, Rotary, the Youth Agency, Park and Rec, Faith Church, numerous people, businesses, all doing their fair share in helping this town be as beautiful as it can be, and even more. As you can see from the Rotary down across from Veterans Bridge to downtown to the Rotary Park here, it's just wonderful to see everybody pitching in and doing that. So I'd like to thank everybody. If I didn't mention you, I apologize. I'd like to thank everyone for their efforts, and the town sure does look pretty. Next, we've got some grant funding that was done for community. The first one is our community policing grant that we received, and you'll be able to see this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We have a police officer that is downtown on foot patrol, and they're just making an extra conscientious effort to engage with the community, as Chief Ceruto had said when he took office. So the idea is the more that we can interact with one another, the better it is. Also, we did receive a grant award from the State Connecticut Highway of Transportation. It's a $9,000 grant for a comprehensive DUI enforcement. So we're going to be working on that, especially this summer. Also, we received from the Connecticut Department of Emergency Management Services a grant for $13,638. And this is going to help our Emergency Operations Command Center. And it's going to help us with personnel. Another one we got was a grant, again, from First Light. I'd like to thank them for a drone for the New Milford Police Department. So this is going to help us with safety. It's going to help us with, it can fly over Dykes Point, where we had an unfortunate incident there. It can help during fires when people are lost. So it's a great benefit, and we're excited about getting that opportunity. We also got a grant award from the Northwest Investment Workforce for low and moderate teens to work here in New Milford. This is a fully paid grant. New Milford doesn't have any matching grant, so we're able to hire 12 low-income to moderate-income young teens to work. They're doing everything from clearing fields to weed whacking to helping with latchkey program. So we're excited to hear that, and hopefully we'll be able to hire even more teens next year. So we'd like to thank the Investment Workforce Board for partnering with us. Also planning, we have a lot of planning going on in town. Talking about how we're going to go and build this town for the next quarter century and beyond. On Wednesday, which is 7/17, Riverfront Revitalization from 7 to 9 p.m. They're going to be hosting the Community Open Forum with consultant Camion 310. And they will be providing findings so far and with the great efforts they've been doing on housing, retail, commercial, and industrial. So we invite you all to come and learn what they've learned so far. I mean, how this is going to impact our town in the future. Also on July 18th, next day, the New Milford 2020 POCD Update Committee will be hosting a meeting concerning emerging themes and strategies. And that's at 7 p.m. at the E. Paul Martin Room. And they're also going to be discussing housing for the next decade. So I invite you to go there. We also have Parry's, which was our consultant, and they're continuing their work on East Street School and potential uses for that. So as you can see, we're all hard at work, not only doing what we're doing for today, but looking to do what we're going to do for tomorrow for the town that we all love. So I'd like to thank all the volunteers that have gone on these committees and are working hard to really direct how we as our citizenry can look at the future of the town. So I thank them for that. Next, for Gilmore Girls fans, on 9/28, we were able to be a part of the Gilmore Girls Fan Fest, and that will be in the part of the downtown. We partnered with Kent and Washington to bring this event to the area, and I'd asked Meredith Cleary from Bank Street Investments if she could kind of take the lead on that, and she graciously did, so we'd like to thank them. I think that'll be a wonderful day for Gilmore Girls fans, 9/28.
Better be ready.
27, 28
Yep.
September.
Also, the ladder truck was last seen yesterday in Pennsylvania, so it's making its way up here. And I'd like to thank, obviously, the grant that we received for it, and you, the public, that allowed us to take funds to actually continue to pay for this piece of equipment. So the equipment isn't bonded like some towns are. It's not leased out. This is bought. Town owns it. So it's a great piece of investment, and I'd like to thank everyone that was involved in that. A couple of things for some updates. Park and Rec, our July 4th weekend, I was able to tour all of our parks. Chief Ceruto did the same. I'm happy to report that we had no real incidents there. The security measures at Len Deming worked very, very well. Lots of residents were very excited that they were allowed to enjoy the park that we spent over $1 million in, and they were very happy. Went to Addis Park, talked to some residents there. They were also ecstatic. Went to Carlson's Grove. I just think with the weather, it was a great time to be out in the outdoors, enjoying yourself, having a barbecue or swimming, and that's what makes this town, part of this town, so great. Also with Park and Rec, their summer camp is underway, and they have them at Pettibone, Scotticoke, and Northville. Also, speaking of Lendem, I'd like to thank the lifeguards for what they did last year and what they're doing this year. Sometimes it's a thankless job, but we like to thank those young men and women for representing the town as they always have, with dignity and class and life-saving skills. So we'd like to thank them. Senior Center, our municipal agents and elder advisors provided 46 individuals with food insecurity, medical, financial, and choice services this past week. Other programs, they did 327 participants in various programs. As of July 1, the town and culinary school extended our memorandum of understanding to provide lunches until September 30th, 2019. And I can tell you the seniors love the meals that they're getting from the culinary school. And I can tell you, first-class meals, absolutely. Also, they did 89 lunches. They did 115 rides to 38 clients, and they had 61 volunteer hours. Also with social services this past week, they were helping local residents with housing issues, medical issues. A big one is electricity and car issues. They did have some people come in because of illness or loss of job, tight budget, and the social services team is working as hard as they can to help them with that. They're actually finalizing their back-to-school program with the United Way, and they're continuing to take renter rebate applications. Also for those throughout the United Way program, through our social services, is the Healthy Savings Registration. And for those, that's the way to teach people how to save. If you fill out the program, I'm going to again post it on our website. You put $20 in a month for the first 3 months, and United Way will graciously match you those funds. So you get $60. And they have actual financial people that can help you learn how to save. So with that being said, we have a lot going on in town. I cannot thank our volunteers enough for what they do to make this town so special. Best town in the USA, I say. Thank you.
You're right, too. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so move to approve the items on the consent agenda, 4A, 5A, 5B, and 5C, which you all have a copy of the New Milford Library Modernization Construction Committee. They're also being reappointed.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
We move item 7 up, so that would be the Riverfront Committee. Our youngest committee member.
Gotta start young to volunteer for the town.
I know.
Don't yell at me. Thank you for moving me up. I appreciate it. For the record, my name is Leba Furman. I am chairperson of the now expired Riverfront Committee, but currently the Bar Grant Steering Committee. This is my granddaughter, JoJo Furman, and we do it for her. For 18 months, the Riverfront Committee has been hard at work, working on revitalizing downtown. We were here before the town council several months ago with a report, and one of the requests that we gave at that time was to consider making the Riverfront Committee a permanent committee. Tonight you have before you an ordinance, a proposed ordinance, that will make this a reality as a permanent committee. Why a permanent committee, you might ask? Well, a permanent committee focused on the riverfront will keep the riverfront moving, the momentum going, the public support coming. A permanent committee will work on the study. Once it's completed, we're working on the master plan for the riverfront, and that's being informed by the marketing study that Mary referred to earlier.
Once that plan is approved by the town council and is adopted and hopefully the planning commission and the plan of conservation development, that will become the master plan for the town. A permanent committee is not going to let those plans sit on a shelf as so many other plans in this town have done for years. The last time we did a master plan with an economic component was back in 1996, I believe it was released, and it just sat on a shelf. Once the sidewalks and the lighting fixtures were put in, nobody ever followed through with the economic component. We don't want that to happen again. And so having a dedicated committee will ensure that that keeps moving, the momentum keeps moving. A permanent committee can be a liaison between the town, the departments, and other agencies, such as the Corporation for Economic Development. The committee will make recommendations to the town council, and if a project were to go to the corporation as well, and work with them. We will help with marketing and outreach, and again, we have a proposed ordinance here before you, and I don't know if it's been reviewed by town attorney.
I haven't reviewed it.
You have? Or not?
I have.
Good, okay, so then it's approved by town attorney, I'm assuming. And
I'm sorry.
are you okay with this ordinance as written?
Some of it, most of it.
Okay,
We'll
all right.
talk about it.
Oh, okay, because you never got back to me, all right. So, once again, we'll hear what the attorney has to say. Again, our purpose here is to promote and advance the preservation, protection, sustainability, maintenance, and development of the riverfront. Not to do it all, but to promote it and advance it. We have town departments, obviously, who Park and Rec and Public Works, and we have volunteers. You all done with that, honey? Okay. And we would develop and recommend to the town comprehensive strategies. And again, these would be recommendations to the town to consider. We would work with town agencies and the corporation to implement the master plan. We would recommend, perhaps if there's any assistance that might be needed from consultants, we might recommend consultants to the town council. We would create broad support and use of the riverfront through activities and education. Of course, that would be with the approval of Park and Rec, since the property along the river is in their jurisdiction, so we would be working closely with them. We would promote and facilitate marketing as needed to focus on the riverfront. We would act as a liaison if needed for catalytic developments that affect the riverfront area. Obviously, we would not be paid as any volunteer board or commission. The employee section is really a standard section for most of other boards and commissions that if needed, we can appoint employees, for example, a secretary. If the town council were to deem it appropriate, we would hire consultants if needed. We would also, and this would all be done within the sums appropriated by the town council. In addition, as we did for the Riverfest, we can raise funds. We're asking to be able to raise funds so that we can use them for different types of events or projects. And we would cooperate with other agencies, and hopefully they would cooperate with us. And that's basically the gist of the ordinance.
Katie?
Thank you. I have a couple questions. I'll just start at the beginning. Your committee would be 7 regular members and 3 alternate members moving forward after the initial time. Do you envision staggering those terms?
Right.
So you're not changing the whole committee?
Correct. It says
Okay.
4 of the terms will serve for the initial members for 4 years and 3 for 2 years. So then
So
every
you're-
2
right.
years we'll have new members coming on.
All right, great. I guess the biggest question I have is about the employees, consultants, supplies. In that paragraph, the annual budget shall be appropriated by the town.
Your annual budget could be 0. I mean, that doesn't have to be a dollar figure.
No, I know it
That's-
doesn't have to
yeah.
be. I'm
I
just
mean,
curious. What if the town didn't want to put it in the budget? I mean, I'm going to just bring up some things that were discussed when this all started quite some time ago, that it would be no burden on the town.
What would be no burden on the town?
the whole riverfront committee change, that people would be going out and finding grants and raising funds, and I think it's wonderful
I
to
don't
keep
recall
it
that I
going.
ever said no burden on the town.
Oh, I don't know you
Yeah, I
personally.
don't
We
know
had
who
a lot
said
of
that,
people
yeah.
talking. But I only bring this up because, as you know, as a resident and involved citizen, that
Mm-hmm.
we don't have a lot of money for the things that need to be done in our town infrastructure-wise. And I believe in wants versus needs. I think it's wonderful to do it. I think it's lovely to live on the river and to use it to the best way we can, and to bring people in and help with economic development of our town, bring people in to want to live here, pay taxes, and make life better all the way around for everybody. But when I see, and having other agencies work along with you, you would have the cooperation of other agencies. That means perhaps taking someone away from what they're being paid to do. I guess my whole thing, I could go through a lot of it, but I want to take the time. I think it needs to be tightened up quite a bit.
Okay, most of this language is from existing ordinances for existing committees.
We don't have this as an ordinance, Lee, but we just have this to consider as
I understand, I'm just
right.
letting you know where the language comes from.
Okay, well, that may
Yeah.
be,
It models
And quite
existing
frankly,
language.
that's fine. But I'm telling you, my personal opinion is, I think it needs to be tightened up, because the way it's written right here, I can find a lot of things that I think could be seen two ways, and I don't want to have the Riverfront Committee or the Town Council at any stage, whether I'm part of it or you're part of that, have to go through a consistent rehashing of everything to try to obtain help, money. It all boils down to funds. So I'm trying to look at it from the idea that let's make it as painless as possible going forward. That's all. I think your work is wonderful. It's just a matter of, if we had a lot of money, I would be saying go for it, but we don't right now. Maybe someday we will.
Well, once again, if we were to request money, it would go through the budgetary process. The town council's the final arbiter.
And that puts us
of that.
all in the same kind of mix we have with every other budget line. So I guess that's my only comment, is I'd like to see it tightened up. I reserve where I think the tightening might be if someone asks me, and that's it. It's my
Okay.
comment.
Let me just give a little bit of background on something that acts as a really good.
For the record, Julie Bailey, co-vice chairman of the, Julie Bailey, what did I say?
Revitalization. You will recall that in the first 7 years of farmland preservation, we had a budget between $6,500 and $7,000, which may seem like a lot of money, but that money allowed the committee to bring in, for every dollar that the town put in purchasing farmland, on the 4 farms, on the 3 farms we were able to save, we were able to bring in another $2 for each one that we did. And when that budget was cut last year, that stopped. And very little is being done. And the farmland preservation was mentioned throughout Connecticut as an extraordinary gold standard for what town farmland preservation should be. I would say in the last 18 months, between the members of the committee, we've probably put into that close to $8,000 of our own money to support this. And what it suggests to me is that if this town has faith in this committee at doing what it's been doing so far, if we submit a specific itemized budget to you, my expectation would be that if the town truly wants to do that, it will make a budget of a minor amount available for us to be able to do the kind of things we've been doing, because, quite frankly, I don't think we can continue to keep investing as private citizens to subsidize a program that should be very exciting for this town.
I think it is very exciting, Julie, and no, I would never, I certainly don't mean that you all should be funding it yourselves. My point being,
Well, we are.
well, that's your
Yeah.
prerogative, Leva.
Exactly, it is,
Okay?
it is.
But my comment was, I'd like to see some of this tightened up, that's all. That's my
Katie and
comment.
I respect that.
I think there's some vagueness. We can't just have back and forth with me, we have some other people here that have comments.
Mike?
I have to, I'm not saying I 100% agree with Katie, but I follow along the same lines. Is I don't want to create something that puts more burden on taxpayers, because I love what you guys are doing, but if we're going to put a committee in here that's going to be another item that's on the yearly budget, it's just one more thing, and that's where I think Katie's trying to get at is our goal is to try and lower the budgets, or at least keep them flat, and not do things that might add to it. So we don't want to, I mean, we have a committee a program for nonprofits to come and ask for funds, and by you guys creating it this way, it's almost like it's gonna go around that process, and that's something that I'm a little bit weary of, because as I said, our goal, I mean, what you guys wanna do as a non-government agency is great in that we do like to have things
No,
done.
we want to be a government agency. This would be to be a government agency.
Well, that's my fear.
Like most other towns that have riverfront revitalization committees do.
And I'm saying that,
projects.
that is my fear is that we're adding another item to the budget, and that's something that makes me a little nervous. And, you know, as I said, I'm one opinion, Katie's another, but that's just my fear. If it's something that would fall underneath another town agency, let's say the Economic Development Corporation, then instead of 2 line items going to the budget, it's still just one, and then that agency can decide how they want to do it. But in my mind, to add another one, it becomes a little bit scary to me.
Lisa?
Does this help? So, Leva, you mentioned that this emulates language that... Yep, so you mentioned that this emulates language in other ordinances for other committees. I did a quick scan of E360, but I couldn't find any with the specific language around the concerns under employees, consultants, and supplies. Can you tell me which committees have this?
I don't know it by heart. I mean, I can go through and look. But
Okay.
I know it's, I mean, I wouldn't have made it up that way.
No, I understand that, but I just thought it would be easier
Yeah,
for the discussion
sure.
if I could point them to, you know,
Right.
the ones you're speaking of specifically. Okay, thank you.
So Randy, in the ordinance for the council and the public, the ordinance, for it to become an ordinance, what are the steps in so doing?
We'd have to get to a public hearing, and then you have a public hearing, just like you did before.
Yep.
And then there would be a vote. Mayor Furman and I can work on the language to make it more palatable. The ordinance technically is a legal document. It's pretty good. I mean, it shows the purpose of the committee, I should say, and it shows how they're going to try to get this done. There's some standards that we need to talk about, because some of it cites that any private entity can be part and parcel of an assistant, should they decide that. Well, any private entity could mean a lot. That's a very broad word. But we can work on it. We can get that. We can leave it. I mean, Mayor Furman and I can work that out with the language. And I understand what Councilwoman Francis is saying about the employee consultant. That is a variation of some of the language that is in some of the ordinances. But the problem with that is they become town employees under this. And there's ways we can do this by ameliorating the language a little bit. I think that's what Councilman Francis meant by tightening it up. This is a good framework. If this is what you want to do, this is a very good framework. There's not a mandatory appropriation. It's essentially a shall, but it means may in this context, because the exclusive makers of the budget is the town council and board of finance and the voters. So that has to go through that process. It's not mandatory that you allocate or appropriate money. So we can work around that. Mayor Furman and I go way back, and we could probably figure out some language that would be palatable to everyone, I would imagine, wouldn't you? So I'm not at all concerned with the breadth or the width of the language, because I think we can tighten it up to use Councilwoman Francis parlance, and it's not something that we could be afraid of on that basis. As you know, I don't do policy. Policy's for you. You're elected. I'm not. But I can work with Mayor Furman. We've worked on a lot of things together to get this palatable and to get it really workable, should you want to do this.
So in terms of process before a public hearing, would the revised ordinance come back before us on another agenda?
Yes, it would.
It goes to public hearing? Okay.
And then it would have to be lodged in the town clerk's office 7
Yep.
days, then it gets just like we'll do for the.
But again, my question was only, the next step would be to get the revision back here before it goes to public hearing, correct?
Yeah, it's called a submission draft, right?
Okay.
Exactly.
So we could, in that case, leave a, because we have several council members absent today, and as Mike and Doug and Eva and Tom might have other thoughts, is that this is the first we're seeing this, and so we really haven't had a digestive period. Perhaps we can submit through the mayor some of our questions, and one thing I would ask you now is would the Director of Economic Development be a member of this committee or ad hoc or what? I mean, sort of
Currently,
integral, isn't it?
on our bar grant committee and on the riverfront committee until it expired, Karen has been invited to and CC'd on all of our agendas.
Right, I'm
minutes,
just saying, but in the language,
correspondence.
would you want to have whomever our EDD was as a part of this?
Are you similar to, like on the pension committee, the director of finance
right.
is a member? Is that what you're
Right.
suggesting?
Yes.
Right, okay. I'm going to actually be meeting with Karen on Thursday, so.
That's just
let's
another
get
note
her
I
input
made
as
in
well
thinking,
on that.
but I, otherwise,
Okay.
could we all
great.
just give you some thoughts?
When you form this committee, would it make it easier for the grant writer to get funds because now you're established as a government thing as opposed to being?
It kind of helps a little
It
bit.
was-
I'm not going to say it's going to get us
Right.
$1 million tomorrow, but I
Right.
think it helps. It shows the town thinks it's important enough to have a committee.
But this is something now, if this does pass, that Tammy can come in and help you guys get grants for this, correct?
Correct.
And also, this has been formed for a while, but because of the length of doing riverfront projects is more than 6 months. So the ideal is to make this temporary committee a permanent one.
Right.
So we're not coming back every 6 months and re-upping it, naming it Riverfront Committee 5, 9, you know.
Right. So my question was, it would make it easier to get grants if you had a permanent committee and it was part of the.
I think it shows a town commitment.
Yeah,
I think
it
that's
shows-
basically what it would do. Yeah.
How that's viewed, you know.
Yeah, and
it's up
especially if
to
it's
the
written to
grantor.
if any of the language is in the POCD, that's really where.
Well, again,
Coverage
we're
will be
hoping
looking
that
at.
the master plan gets adopted into the POCD.
Lisa?
Yeah, so one final thought. I am in support of, for the reasons stated, making this a permanent committee, weaving in the Economic Development Office to make sure that's part and parcel, and ironing out then the details to make that acceptable for everyone. But I think we do need to put a stake in the ground and say, you know, we're serious about this, and let's not have them coming back every 6 months.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Entertain a motion?
the table?
To do what?
How do we do this?
I want us
I think we
to
need a
bring
motion.
forward more
They've got to come back with a
questions.
second draft.
There was no
I
motion.
would ask for authority to meet
Yep.
with Ms. Furman and maybe get this on the road.
Okay.
But you
Everybody
would like to,
agreeable with
you
that?
would like to
Yeah,
hear
I'll
what
second
we
that.
all have to
I need to
say.
hear what you have to say.
Right, and the other council people.
Yeah,
One's
I'll
on
second that.
vacation.
All right, so we'll do, yeah. So there's no motion needed, just,
Right.
Just
we've
discussion.
we've heard from the town council that Randy's gonna work together
And a revised ordinance.
And revise
Put in
it.
front of-
at the next council meeting. Yep.
Thank you, Leva.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jojo.
Julie.
Anyone have a puppy
And
here that
Jojo.
wants to eat?
You can tell Greg is,
Greg's got the puppy?
he's had kids, he's played this game before.
Item 6, move that we go into executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And who are you inviting in before we do it?
Who would you like me to invite in?
think Greg,
I think our HR
Randy,
director and our town attorney.
And Greg,
And
both
Greg.
Gregs.
Yeah.
And
Two Gregs and a
Greg
Randy.
Ossipow.
Everybody else?
Interns?
Thank you. We'll call you back in.
Thank you. We'll call you back in.
Yeah.
Move to go back to open session, to return?
No motions made, no votes taken.
Yes.
Second.
No motions were made, no votes were taken,
Okay.
and I move to bring us back
We have
into
a second.
executive
Second.
session.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank
Okay.
you.
Move to add agenda item 7A, which would be to bring a disposition regarding a discussion we had on item 7 during executive session.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Thank you.
For item 7A, move to allow the Director of Human Resources to contact KERMA and the assigned attorney in order to draft a full and final stipulation along the lines discussed in executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay.
Next is...
Item 8, Mayor's Office, move to approve the appointment of the Lake Lillinois Authority's law enforcement personnel listed on the attachment
See
you
your
all have.
attachment coming from Diane, the administrative assistant for Lake Lillinois Authority, with all the officers and assistants.
Does everyone see that?
Yep.
Item 8 in your packet?
Got it.
Okay.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 9, move to accept an application for road closure for Bank Streets Investment for the Oktoberfest on September 21st. And you'll
Second.
find that in your packet, number 9 in
And
your
you'll
packet.
notice that it was signed by the traffic authority and the chief.
Absolutely.
So we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Aye. Item 10, discussion and possible action on the food truck ordinance. This is under economic development. Karen, would you like to
Karen?
speak to this?
That was a hell of a hit, huh?
And we had, for those council members that were not present, we did have our public hearing, and that public hearing is closed. We had that prior to our council meeting.
Well, so as I mentioned at our last meeting to discuss the food trucks, in the last 10 years, business has changed. And food trucks as a business have gained a lot of credibility and popularity. As a matter of fact, the most popular food trucks have followers on social media that pay attention to where they're going. There is actually a Connecticut food truck website that food trucks can go to and register where they're going to be so that followers who've heard about a certain truck or who are interested in a certain type of food can try something new. Again, food trucks have a very different business model than permanent restaurants that have a brick and mortar presence. They have limited menus. They don't have a full kitchen. It's on a truck. It's very small. There's usually only 1 or 2 staff people in the truck. If they are really doing well, they might have a wait person or a person to take orders while people are waiting in line. They're very weather dependent. Their locations can change. It is a highly regulated business. The health department, as well as the state of Connecticut, have a lot of regulations in place so that food trucks are safe for the public, the consuming public who want to enjoy them. Many food trucks start as a micro enterprise or a business that has just a few employees with a fairly low investment compared to what it costs to start an entire restaurant. Many food trucks can grow in popularity and create a brick and mortar space afterwards. After they get started on a food truck, they've tested their menu, they've tested their customer service. There is an opportunity for that. These are appealing venues for food from both tourists as well as residents have been making their expectations known. I did do research and looked at other communities in Connecticut who have food truck ordinances either similar to what we're considering or allowing food trucks in more general areas. Certainly Ridgefield was one of the ones we looked at. Their ordinance has been in place for about a year. They have shown no negative impact on their restaurant businesses that are in the community. They currently only have 1 permanently placed food truck. So it hasn't opened the door to a negative atmosphere related to different food trucks.
Where is the Richfield truck is located at?
It's at a brewery.
Princeton.
Well, in talking to our own brewery owners, they have seen a lot of tourism related to the beer trail. And again, it's part of helping your customers spend more money in the community is to offer food in addition to just the beer. So it would be a real amenity in that case. Other communities I looked at included Derby, Monroe, Woodbury, Bethel, New Britain. Some of these communities are obviously bigger than ours and have different challenges than what we face. Brookfield, Fairfield, Enfield, West Hartford, New Haven, Stamford, Milford, East Hartford, Norwalk, Westport, Greenwich, and Stonington. So all of these communities have addressed this desire and the popularity of food trucks in one way or another.
Tom?
The only thing I don't see here, and I agree with, I think the ordinance is fine, and I support this. The only thing, being a councilman, I don't see on here is an annual fee for this.
Yes, there is an annual fee through the licensing of the food trucks through the health department.
And what would that fee be for this?
I don't have that information with me right now.
Randy?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There's also a requirement that the vendor comply with the licensing ordinance, the vendor's ordinance. And there's a fee provision in the vendor's ordinance. I think it's $25.
Can they, if the council wanted to change that for this particular thing, could they have the ability to do so?
You could do it right now.
Yeah, I mean,
There's some revisions that this is going to need. Karen and I spoke about this. Director Pollard and I spoke about this, and so did CEO Reagan and us. There's going to need to be some if you will, adjustment with a final iteration, tightening. And the reality is that they're going to be substantive. If you want to make a change and require a fee because it's more of a for-profit situation and more of a permanent type situation, you could do that now. I could put that in the ordinance for the next town council meeting. Very simple.
Yeah, I mean, I eat off of one of these food trucks in New York City at least once or twice a week. They are everywhere. I think they'll do fabulous here wherever they are, and I don't think they're going to impact the restaurants here one iota. I got all sorts of texts in the last week once this hit the agenda. It's going to hurt brick and mortar businesses. I think that's a fallacy. If that was the case, then wherever this food truck is going to be, if they opened up as a restaurant, it would have impacted somebody else's restaurant. So I think that's not a case. I know the really good ones make a lot of money and can make a lot of money. And I'm not trying to be punitive to them, but I think something like $350 a year for a license here is not something unreasonable. I've seen these guys make that in one day.
Yep.
If the guy's food stinks, it'll take him 3 days to make it. I think there's got to be some sort of skin in the game here because, brick and mortar places pay. They pay property taxes and things of the such.
So, yes, I think it's a great idea, and I would say this, they are everywhere. It is a trend, and it is something that people follow. There is a brew trail, just like a wine trail. Tammy brought that up to us, and that just indicates right there that it's, we know wine trails, they're still around, and we hope that the breweries around here stay. I think one thing that was asked of me was, well, what about the size of the property that the host might have? So, for instance, Housatonic River Brewery, he has a sufficient amount of space there where he would be off the road. Someone else might not have enough. Could there be in here something that defines a minimum amount of space? And another thing, when people think of the popularity, as Tom said, in the city, there is a maximum number of people that can be at a brewery at one time. I mean, just by virtue of the size of it. We have 2 in town, and they're quite different in what they size. So I think when people get worried about it, you have to step back and say, well, if there's 40 people at one time in one place, maybe not all of them are hungry, that's certainly not a stampede of people. And as I said, I'm for this. And the other thing I have been asked by a lot of people, I do work in downtown, is how this, that the people who have the brick and mortar restaurants, they have gone through a lot, they pay taxes, they're tied to our community. I think there is something to be said for that, but I also know that it is a trend, and we would be remiss, I think, to not pay attention to that trend. And I think that it would bring people to town, whether they eat a hot dog or whether they sit at a white tablecloth restaurant, they may come back, whereas if they never stopped for the hot dog that they saw when they drove by the brewery, they might not know about our town. I mean, it's something to consider, and it's also to consider that we keep our residents happy. Because if they want it, and I mean, I haven't heard anybody really hate the idea. So I think we've had this out there long enough for people to hear it. But I would like to see something about the size as well as the cost, so that it's $25 might be just a little too low.
I can help with that.
Yeah.
So, the health department charges $40. If they're using a propane fire, which most of them do, there's an additional $10 for a fire marshal inspection. Riverfront Revitalization, when we did Riverfest, we charged $75 a day. People said, we're making tons of money. They literally said to us that other places were charging hundreds a day. So I think the magic might be somewhere between 100 and 200 a day. I don't know what the final number is, but if we want to be competitive and start some new stuff, then it would be 100.
I can speak to that, Mayor, just on that issue. I don't do policy at all, you know, but if you're gonna make it 200 a day, then you're gonna give incentive, because I've had this in another town, incentive for somebody to violate it, because the most you can fine them is 200 a day.
Okay.
So that'll give an incentive to say, well, I'm not gonna get a license, I'm not gonna do anything, I'm just gonna do this and get fined. So that's just something you might want to consider.
Well, that brings up the authority to do anything about someone who is scofflaw about this. You know, we have that problem in other areas. We just redid an ordinance for blight because we needed more teeth, if you will. So if someone does not comply, what agency forces the compliance?
Police.
The police?
Police. Chief Cerruto, I've already informed Chief Cerruto. Did you speak with Chief Cerruto?
I have not.
I spoke with Chief Cerruto and told him this ordinance was going to likely come into play, and I didn't give any value on it because I don't make those decisions. But I said that I would be looking to issue an ordinance summons. He didn't respond because it wasn't ready for him to review anyway. But I would ask him to enforce it by way of a summons.
So you know, when we created the ordinance to allow drinking on town property with the okay of, you fill out a form, right, permit, and you get the mayor and the chief of police have to both sign off on it.
Mm-hmm.
So an application of this type, could that require those same two people to give the okay?
I don't know that there's a rational basis for having a.
Well, I don't know, if the
police.
chief of police had to sign off on my permit and I knew that he was the guy that was gonna enforce it.
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I'm not asking you to, I mean,
But
maybe
it's a
there isn't
good
an
point.
answer.
It's a
I
good
just
point.
wondered if, to be consistent in what we do with our ordinances, might not,
We could certainly put that in.
I mean, what's the downside of having those two
There
people?
is no downside.
Listen, to have beer and wine at a 16-year-old's birthday party at the max, I had to have 4 signatures from all over town. I don't think it's unreasonable.
And
for a guy
the fact is,
vending.
if somebody contests it, we'll defend it.
Right.
And don't forget, when you do an ordinance, a good ordinance, the ordinance is presumed valid.
Yes,
There's a presumption.
that's right.
And as long as we can state, I can state language.
If I were a food truck person, I think I would like that, because then I would know that my friend who has a pizza restaurant standing, I could say, look, this isn't fly by night. I
Right.
got all my I's dotted and my T's crossed. And Karen, it's just something to think
It
about.
adds more legitimacy to it.
No, it's a very good suggestion. Where I just came from, they had a similar process where there had to be a sign off of actually 3 staff members. Included, and one was the mayor, one was the chief of police, and
we
I
have our
believe it
health
was also the
department.
fire department.
Well, we have our health department.
Fire department, health
We've got
department, the chief,
Fire.
and the chief of police.
So
And the mayor.
they'll be overrun.
And the mayor.
They'll be doing their first business with the people from town.
And what I'd like to do too is look at what other communities are charging for this license. It varies greatly, whether it's a 1-day permit or whether it's more of a broad permit.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up
Danvers
because I
weekly.
spoke with the mayor earlier. We talked about they had a daily, a weekly, a
Right.
monthly, say a quarterly.
Seasonally.
Right, seasonally,
And-
whatever,
annually.
so
Yeah,
break it down
Danbury,
so
they
people-
have a temporary food license fee. From 1 to 14 days, it's $80, and then 15 to 28 days is $160.
There we go.
That's not unreasonable.
And do they also charge a separate health department licensing fee or not?
They just note that the health department is closed on Fridays, and you do have to, you have to put an application in with them, and it's $50 if you're late.
Their own fee.
Listen,
Right.
Yeah. Let's, if, as you said, tighten this up, but let's do this
I
quickly
was just
so
gonna
that we
say,
can
what can we do
capture as
to-
much of the summer for these
Right, what
vendors
can
as
we do
possible.
can we get this ready for our next council meeting? Oh, my God.
Yeah, it doesn't matter until it's,
And
you
then,
can't do anything
because,
until next council.
because you have to.
Well, no, hold on.
2 weeks.
So do we
Oh.
want to, we have not, as an entity, ever called a special meeting. Do we want to call a special
I
meeting?
think that we should, we used to do that all the time.
Let's get things rolling. We've debated it, there's been a public hearing.
Do you know what that is?
Let's get on it and get it done.
If I may comment on that, don't forget we have a mandatory time frame. We have 7 days in the town clerk's office.
Right.
Prior to publication, and then 7 days prior to the
So
public
we're
hearing.
at our
So
next meeting.
So we're at the next meeting anyway.
I calculated it today, on the way down here.
I tried so hard.
So after let's assume we pass it at the next meeting, then there's another waiting period, or is that?
Yeah, then
No, so that's right off.
It technically takes effect the 21st day following approval, but at that point, you have essentially, it's like a president-elect. You have an ordinance-elect that you can start operating with.
It's valid.
Good.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks from tomorrow, a food truck can come in, assuming we get the bill.
Assuming everybody signs off on it. Right, assuming everybody, because
Yeah,
you're
we
gonna
don't
have, now
have
you're gonna
our
have the
whole
mayor,
council here.
you're gonna have the director, you're gonna have the chief of police, and you're gonna have the health director have to sign off on it. But that's administrative, and that's a policy.
I mean,
issue.
listen, I know it sounds a little onerous, but I think it adds legitimacy.
Yes.
It gives the vendor some confidence that he's facing the public officials, and the bricks and mortar folks know that we're not being, they're under as much scrutiny, if not more, than a brick and mortar business.
And it relieves
But we
the host
appreciate all
of that.
businesses.
It relieves the host
Right,
of having to take that burden,
right,
if you
be the
will.
enforcement.
Do we also want to put in a time frame of looking at this in a year to see if there was any, I mean, I know you're saying that Ridgefield looked at it after a year and found that there's no adverse effects. Should we also do that to where we want to just make sure that
You can look back once you create the ordinance.
Yeah, we can go back and adjust it anytime you want.
I will need the detail as to what you want in here.
Well, should we decide on a price right now, just so we can?
So
I like
can
the
get it.
Danbury pricing. I mean, it's a neighborhood community. It
1 to
sounds-
14 days was $80 for the fee, and then 15 to 28. So in essence, the $80 would get you
1 to
2
14.
weekends.
Yep.
Or, let's just say someone wanted it for a weekend. And the 160 would get you 4 weekends.
4 weekends.
So how much, that 160 is how many days?
15 to 28.
So is it 240 for a month? You add those two together?
No.
No.
If you add them together, yes, if you'd have to take out 2 permits to have a complete,
Oh.
so
See,
it's 240.
I would say 1 to 1480. I would say a monthly
Yeah,
would be
monthly.
160. And now pick a number for the season.
Well, what's the season, 6 months or 3 months?
Well, the season could be anytime. They operate
Season's
in
at 3
winters.
months, technically.
They operate
You gotta do
24
months, you can't do season.
hours, 12,
So
yeah.
is that gonna be too onerous, Karen, 160 a month? So somebody who sits there for 6 months is gonna pay close to $1,000.
Oh, they're gonna make a lot more than $1,000.
Do you think that's fair in your experience?
$160 a
New
month?
Haven, actually, if you got the entire year,
Yep,
it's about $5,000.
okay.
Yeah.
But they are very popular in New
Yeah.
Right,
Haven.
right.
Yeah, you got universities there to feed,
Right,
right.
right,
Yeah.
just trying to see a
Well, I think I know
possibility.
some people who might
Listen,
take it
we're-
up as a part-time job.
Right, we're
And
not
then
trying to
when-
make this punitive, we're trying to make it attractive.
Make,
Not quite
yeah.
done. So then would they just need one health certificate? So one $40 charge if they chose a monthly and it reoccurs, or is it
Well-
every month they have to pay $40?
That's up to the health department and how often they need to check.
In the ordinance, there's a minimum of 3-month interval on inspection.
Okay, so $40 every 3 months, just to kind of get an idea. Okay.
And then 160 a month, doesn't matter how many months they take.
No, I
Right.
think it should be 160 a month.
Let's
Per
keep it
calendar.
simple.
Yeah,
Is that simple?
keep it simple.
All right. What else do you need, Randy, to finish up?
Just whether or not you have any comments concerning things such as the separating distance of 250 feet, not from the building,
Right.
but from the
From the
premises.
edge of the
I'm so
property.
glad you asked. So the woman who spoke earlier, Sue, she talked about being a neighbor.
Yes,
And I
the
apologize.
restaurant is right next door to the.
So does that violate the 250 feet limit?
I don't think
That's,
so.
that-
No.
that's,
I didn't do it.
that's way far
It was
away.
measured by
Okay.
someone I
That's not
know.
even close to 250.
Okay.
Are you talking about
Right?
from the food truck or from the property?
No, it's the end of the property.
From the end of the property.
That would be tough. The way I drafted this, and it's up to you, the way I drafted it is 250 feet from the establishment.
Oh,
Right, from the front door.
There.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
here's why. Because, let's say you have a food truck in the parking lot of TJ Maxx, or TJ Maxx, and it's on the same property as Panera Bread, right, or other restaurants.
yes.
But if it's within 250 feet of the premises,
Right.
that's a lot different than being on.
Exactly.
from the
So
front.
let's use
Right.
that as an example. Bad Dream Brewing, how far away is the diner?
Don't know.
Oh,
And how far
Oh,
away
it's more than
is...
250
it's gotta be about
How far away is Wendy's?
600 feet, 700 feet.
Wendy's.
Oh, Wendy's, I forgot about it.
Wendy's could be tough.
We gotta make sure that we are
That-
writing this so it
that's what-
works.
That's what you're here for, to make that.
But if you make it, you mean from the host establishment's front door?
Well, from.
Is that what you're thinking?
I'm talking about, not from the host establishment.
The
I'm talking
food
about
truck.
the food truck itself.
Okay, so the food
To
truck
another establishment that serves food.
could go,
Fixed establishment.
to your point, could go into the middle of that parking lot to get rid of the distance to
That would be
Wendy's.
that would be up to the owner of the property.
That's why the landlord has to give consent.
Oh, yeah,
Right,
there.
Right,
So the landlord could say,
I'm
nope.
just saying,
but
do
it's
we-
250 from the door.
do we pick a number that's not gonna work for the two brewers we have in town? Are we absolutely sure? Because
I
now's
don't
the
know.
time to
I
change.
was
One
given that
doesn't-
number.
Well, it's
I
gotta be
didn't-
good,
I
it
didn't
should be,
select
it's gotta be good for everybody, it's not, it's,
Right.
you know what I
Right.
mean? This is not just for two
can't
particular
individualize.
businesses. This is not favoritism, this is
And the
about,
downtown is excluded, and I think for
Private property.
tightening up, okay, just.
Private property.
Yeah, right, okay, just want to make sure that was in.
So that also needs to be double checked to make sure that we're not doing something that doesn't apply to both.
So I need to know what that distance is.
yeah, I would go 250 from the front door of the
Karen,
closest
what have you
establishment.
found in
I don't
your
think it's big
research?
enough for- okay.
There's
Anything?
usually some kind of distance requirement that's framed in the exact way that the attorney stated, where it's from the corner of the establishment, not the property lines. So sometimes it's less. I have seen ones that were 200 feet. The most I saw was 500 feet.
North Canaan has 50 feet. I just wrote that. No, North Canaan has 50 feet.
50 feet
50 feet.
in North Canaan?
North Canaan.
Well, they're like,
I mean,
Not much.
they're just,
going on.
there's not much going on there.
Even
Right.
if it's the official measurement.
it could be 200 feet, I don't, you
Yeah.
know, personally.
From the
Whatever you
corner of
decide.
one structure to the
Right.
food truck.
Right,
Corner of the
from
structure.
200 feet from the front door, the closest establishment to the truck.
Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about that.
And just
Yeah.
one
Can I
thing,
just ask the
so,
Littlefields if 250
oh,
works?
go ahead.
Does 250 work for you guys?
Yeah,
It does?
Yes.
Okay, we're sure about that.
as long as it's not from the property line, as long as it's from
Yeah.
the building, the food truck,
Okay.
I got 500.
So here's
Right.
another question, Karen. Could, let's just say brewery A and restaurant B are within, they are closer than that, but restaurant B doesn't mind. Restaurant B is a completely different thing, they're not open on that day, or they don't serve anything like that kind of food. Is there any option for, no,
Waiver?
no waiver?
No
No
waiver.
waiver. Okay,
The-
just
the-
check.
The ordinance doesn't call for that, and you're the
I
boss.
understand.
My recommendation is you
Slippery
don't do
slope.
that.
I get it. I just want
Slippery
to,
slope.
I understand. I've
That's
been
not
around a
tightening,
long time.
that's not tightening it up.
No, that tightens it up.
That's making it loose.
No, I
That's right, we
just
don't
wanna
wanna make
know.
it loose, we wanna make it tight.
Okay.
Does anybody have, Lisa?
So who can help Karen find the measurement between Wendy's and Bad Dream Brewing? 'Cause
Bad
that's-
Dream's landlord's
But
not letting
it-
it happen anyway.
But the landlord
Yeah,
won't
they're-
allow that to happen.
They're not private property.
They do that with Google Maps.
All right.
The CEO asked me to place in there, and I think Karen knows this, that it's not allowed in residential properties.
Oh,
I think that's oxymoronic because the person
Well-
had already said it. I was redundant, I should say, because it already says for a commercial establishment. I'll put it in there anyway.
May I just say, what if I was on the private property and instead of a state garage across the street, there was a condominium? Would he still be able to, at Housatonic River, be having a food truck there if I'm in my condo across the street?
Yeah, it's not a zoning issue. If
Okay.
there's a zoning issue, then.
Because you never
it may
know
be an
what might
issue.
get built.
Don't forget, this is not a structure, these aren't structures.
I understand.
They're
I
mobile.
understand.
Does anybody have anything else? Okay. You got it.
And you'll send it out so that people
Side
people
note.
out here can look at it and give us.
Thank you,
I'll
Karen.
give it to the Director
Thank you,
of
Karen.
College and Mayor Bass.
Thank you.
Item
Thank you,
11, discussion and possible action on the Upland Road Bridge. You have that in your packet?
So in your
Number 10.
package, you will see we have the opportunity to get a grant for Upland Road. And let me pull mine out.
It's number 10. Oh, no, it's number 11, I'm sorry. Yeah, here it is. Number 11. This is the grant from the
And-
state DOT.
It's a grant from the state. We're using the Federal Local Bridge Program,
Which bridge are we talking about?
Upland Road
Upland.
Bridge.
What's that?
Up towards Hunt Hill.
So if you go back to the second to last page, you're going to look at the preliminary application and a couple things to look at. First is the anticipated schedule. So as you'll see, because these are federal dollars, you're looking at this actually starting construction in the year 2022. But
Okay, then.
the state,
Fine by me.
right, but the state actually, for us to continue to move forward, we need to act on this at this
Right,
meeting.
right.
There's also a 20% match that the town would have to get. As you
Which
can
would
see on,
equal?
as you can see on the last page.
Ah, yes.
We also have applied for the DOT design program. We should be getting that, but we haven't gotten it yet. But as you can see, with the 20% town match, and then the cost of the DOT getting the grant program for the design program, a projected $3,325,000 bridge would end up costing the town $665,000.
Second.
No, I have.
Hasn't done the motion yet.
No, we have not done a motion yet. I have a question. There's an asterisk here, I'm assuming Tammy put this in, that the cost, Tom, can you turn the fan off?
Yeah.
My eyes
Dry
are
out my eyes.
dry, yeah. The cost to be reduced to zero with DOT administered design program, which would take the town share down by 70,000 to the
Right.
low number of 595,000.
Right,
Is that a fact? It will
Correct.
happen?
correct.
Okay. So when does the 595,000, is it paid in these increments that I see here on the application?
Correct.
So, okay, then I guess my only question then, Mayor, is where are we gonna get the first 476,000?
Well, we'd have to put that into our budgetary thing in the year 2021, 2022.
Oh.
I think it's
2020, I thought so too, 2020, 21.
Yep.
20,
The first 476,000.
Because it's a preliminary design and engineering, it's gonna be at the forefront.
so the preliminary design engineering, the $70,000?
They want design completion October 2021.
Correct.
So
So-
the prelim is gonna be done before that.
Of course, would be in our 19,
Yeah.
or 2021, right?
Right,
So,
Go next year's budget.
correct.
yeah,
Stuff costs.
so that I think is something for us to consider. And the bridge is at what state of disrepair, crumbling? We don't have Mr. Zarba here, do you know?
It needs to be done.
Was it on the list?
Yes.
So
I think so.
we were gonna be budgeting for this anyway, or bonding for this.
And this is not the case as in Mariel where the design was so out of spec
No.
that we could do it ourselves cheaper.
No.
No.
All right?
I don't
And-
think we could do this bridge for 600 grand.
Okay.
And one
That
other
answers the
question, Mayor?
question.
I'm sorry to
Yes.
ask you this, but we don't have someone here. These figures which were presented by the state, I guess, I don't know who put these numbers in. The preliminary engineering fees, the
Correct.
breakdown, who did that? Our guys or the
Yep.
state? Okay.
The ATANE engineers, they're the ones that did it.
Oh,
See right there?
oh, Attain.
Yep.
Okay. So Attain on Wall Street in New York did these numbers, and is it possible they can be, can they go, no, we're wrong, yes. But in other words, once we do this, if we do this, these can't go up? Never. That can't be true.
Well, like anything else, until you actually have a design in hand.
Yeah.
And you actually have the contract in hand.
Right.
Hard design.
Exactly.
So do we have to commit to this tonight, or? we
Yes, you
just-
do.
Yes. So in essence, we're getting a $3 million bridge,
3.3
3.3.
for approximately $595,000.
Just under 600,000.
From 1 to 5 to down.
Exactly.
And as we know, if
Second.
we don't do it now, $3 will cost us $5
Right.
Correct.
as we go forward.
1 to 5, yeah.
So you're making the motion, Katie, or I?
Yes, I guess so. I move that we allow the mayor to take action on the application to, on the Upland Road Bridge, per the state of Connecticut
Federal, local.
Transportation, federal and local grant.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I do need to, I just realized there's something that I'm supposed to read here, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, there is.
And be it resolved that Pete Bass, mayor of the town of New Milford, is authorized to accept and execute the commitment to fund letter for federal local bridge program fiscal year 2019, Upland Road over East Aspetuck River, bridge number 05115. That's part of my motion.
Second.
Second.
But do we already second?
Do we?
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Motion to adjourn.
Dang it, I would do that one.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.